Mahayji, everybody, and welcome back to Amplified Nevada Native Youth. It's been a minute since we've had a live show or just a recording in general, so we're excited to be back here with you. And for this month, we really just want to honor some of our students from our local area and honor their experiences. So we're going to be talking to a few students this week, and also next week, we're going to be featuring Mert Running Wolf, and he'll talk a little bit about his acting and what he does and how it is to be a Native person in film and acting and also writing. But before we get to anything else, I'll introduce myself real quick. My name is Avery Wyatt, and I am a recent graduate of the University of Nevada, Reno. And I'm about to move to Los Angeles, actually, to go to school and continue my educational journey. So that's me. I've been your co-host for I think we're almost on a year anniversary, which is really cool. So, but introduce my other co-host, Jarrett. Jarrett, take it away.
Wahe Pinitine. Hello, everyone. It's good to see you. Thanks for having me back again, Avery. My name is Jarrett Work. I am ANNY in Dakota, and I'm a senior at the University of Nevada, Reno, studying journalism. And I'm super excited for today's conversation with Christina and the rest of the conversations that we're going to be having the rest of this month. So sit down, get ready for a good show.
Yeah, it's going to be a really amazing show. So we have amazing student from Nevada. Her name is Christina Thomas, and she's currently getting her PhD at the University of California, Davis. So Christina, let's hear a little bit more from you. And yeah, thanks for coming on today.
Yes, thank you guys for having me so much. Hama Pisha Tabino, the Dawa Kutspana Mina Nia, Nukui Takadabino, and the Davis way to. Hello, everyone. My name is Christina Thomas. I am Northern Paiute, Western Shoshone from the Great Basin in Northern Nevada, and I'm also Hopi Tobacco Clan from Arizona. I am currently a third-year PhD student at UC Davis, getting my PhD in Native American Studies, two designated emphasis, one I'm about to add. The first one is in performance and practice studies, and then the second one is in second language acquisition. So thank you guys for having me. I'm really excited to talk about my journey. Definitely didn't go the way that I thought that it was going to go, but nonetheless, I'm really happy at where I'm at today. So I'm glad to share my story with everyone.
Oh yeah, we're glad to have you too. And I think it's important. One thing that you just said is that we've had a ton of students on this show, and we talked to students from all over the country, it seems like, and everybody has a different pathway. And I think as Native students, our pathways tend to go all over the place compared to what a normal student may go through. So yeah, we're excited to hear your story. And that sort of brings us into the first question of the discussion, which is describe your journey from high school to college. So what was it? What were you like in high school, and how did you change going into college?
Yeah, so I went to school right after I graduated. I went to UNR. I mainly decided because I got the Millennium Scholarship that UNR is probably the best bet for me, just because I didn't really do some of the things that I should have as far as like applying for scholarships and things like that. And I knew at the time, my family really didn't have the money to help me go to Addis home was a little bit better decision for me. So that's the main reason why I chose to stay there, but I'm glad that I did. I definitely think towards the end and just my journey, I wouldn't have been able to do it without my family really close to me. So that's why I chose to go to UNR.
Awesome. Yeah, UNR is a really great school. I'm glad that I've had the chance to go there. And yeah, definitely picking a school that's the best spot for you to go at that moment in time. You can always transfer, you can always go somewhere new, but having that spot to really, get your feet wet and get into studying what you want to study is really important. Mm-hmm. So, as you said, you're a PhD student in your third year. Congratulations. That's really, really exciting. And we definitely need more Native students going for their PhDs. So can you describe to us and explain a little bit about what you're researching and studying for your PhD right now?
Yeah, so I am, my research really focuses, so I just attained, I got my master's degree this past June. So one of the things why I chose UC Davis is unique because you can do your PhD and your master's all kind of in like one go. You could choose not to test, for your master's, but, job opportunities and stuff for teaching associate, professors or whatever, adjunct, like you have to have your master's. So I just decided like, I'm already here, might as well just like test, see what I know, a good prep, for my QEs this upcoming this year. So, but yeah, I decided to get my PhD. I was actually on the path to go to dental school. I had received an IHS scholarship, which focuses for pre-health professions for Native and non-Native students. And so I secured that my junior year in my undergraduate degree. And I really thought that I was going to go to dental school. Then I heard about this program through a previous professor at UNR who got to know me through the music department and kind of was learning more about myself and like my work in my community and what I wanted to do with like Native music, which was one of the reasons why I double majored to learn more about composition to make like new contemporary and traditional Paiute song and documentation of our songs. So I got to know her a little bit more, and she told me about this program and thought that I would be a good fit. And at the time I was like, no, I'm going to go to dental school. Like I already have a scholarship, and like I've been wanting to be an orthodontist since I was, in high school, and like that was my path. And so I thought, well, I'll just apply and see if I get in. If not, like, going to dental school is not a bad, a bad plan B. So I did, and then I got in, and then I had to make a really hard choice. And I really, I'm very indecisive, and so I'm very like, we'll make a pro-con list, and I thought about it for months, and it ultimately just came down to what would I feel in my life if I didn't pursue, like what would I feel more like I missed out on. And for me, that was kind of easy because a lot of the work I had been doing in our community was with elders and our youth and our culture. And I just really enjoy doing that. A lot of that I was doing voluntarily. And so I just thought, well, why not just like follow my heart and do what I've been doing and go here. So that's kind of why I chose to come here in NAS. So my particular research focuses upon using my bachelor's degree with my music. I'm a singer, also a dancer. And so I kind of combine that Western training of music, because I had to learn to read music and sight read and all the stuff that musicians have to do. But lately I've been working on a project that incorporates documentation of our music through Western notation. So I'm kind of combining my undergraduate degree with my new knowledge of indigenous methodologies and ways of recording our own ways of recording, right? Because often we're written about, not necessarily what we showcase. And so kind of putting that to the forefront, as well as fusing in, because you can't have our songs without our language. And so when I was a Paiute instructor, both at the Reno Sparks Indian Colony, and then I also taught for 5 years at Washoe County School District. And I kind of was the one behind getting UNR, the first indigenous language, Northern Paiute, established at UNR. And so doing work in language regeneration is also really important to me. So kind of combining like linguistics with language revitalization and music, kind of where I'm fusing everything together. So I'm really fortunate that this program allows me to be interdisciplinary and allows me to kind of not have to just focus upon like indigenizing musicology or just focusing on linguistics, that I get to do both. That makes sense.
No, yeah, that definitely makes sense, because I mean, they go together. You can't really separate our like histories and our just ways of life like into the Western educational system. I feel like they kind of make us do that nowadays. So no, that's really cool to hear what you're doing. That's a really good work. I think it's needed. And for our current college students that we have right now, and especially students reaching the end of college, talk a little bit about what drove you to pursue your PhD straight out of your bachelor's degree, and what was that process like? Like, was it intimidating to be like, holy crap, I'm going to be with these other PhD students, or should I get my master's? Like, how was that?
I honestly really didn't think about it much until like this year when I was studying for my master's exam. Because I went straight into it, and then kind of was all crazy because COVID happened and doing classes online. But It really wasn't until I was studying for my master's, and then when I started taking like my coursework, that I kind of realized to really start thinking about like my work and like what do I want to present, in academia about my people and what I want to say, right? Because like eventually, hopefully I get to the point, where I'm publishing my own articles and hopefully someday my own books. And so it's like really forces you to look at well, what do I want to say? What do I kind of like, if I was to make a name for myself, what is it going to be known for? And so to kind of see yourself, and attending a lot of different conferences and different seminars or like webinars, where you're in contact with these like really renowned like Indigenous scholars, and you're like fangirling over them, and like because you really resonate with their work, right? And so to think that like, wow, like someday somebody's going to be reading my stuff, is kind of sometimes intimidating. But I think like this program just taking my coursework so far and doing everything. But then, when I was like literally sitting here at my house, taking my master's exam, I was thinking like, oh my gosh, like I'm really sitting here like on my computer, like trying to get my master's, like right here in my living room. So then it kind of really hit me like, oh wow, like I'm really doing it. And then, just my success this year with several fellowships kind of, because I really don't see myself like as a grad student. You kind of already, for me anyway, kind of had to like battle like imposter syndrome, my first year, and then just kind of really like recognizing like that, I'm becoming, whether I know it or not, like I'm becoming, an emerging scholar. So sometimes it is intimidating to think about, but oftentimes like you're just so busy that you really don't have time to sit and think about like what you're actually doing. You're just getting it done,
Yeah, definitely. Because like I'm in my senior year right now, and I'm thinking about grad school and stuff like that. But it's been so long for me to try to get this bachelor's degree that I'm like, do I want to go back to school? But I honestly do. So you kind of touched on it a little bit about like having the imposter syndrome and other things like that. So what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced while you were going to school, and like how did you overcome them?
Well, I think well, for me, like one of the main reasons like why I decided, because people were like, which kind of ties into the question, like that I was kind of crazy going straight from, getting my bachelor's, because like it took me a little minute because I took some time off and did some traveling and pageants and some other things. And so when I finally got back, right, because I kind of like didn't take school seriously when I first like started going. After like my second year, I started working a lot, and so my grades kind of got affected, and then I kind of took some time off. Then like I said, traveled, did some programs and did some pageants, and I was like, okay, it's time for me to go back to school. Got all my scholarships and everything back, and was doing really great. And then like, I was blessed like to find out I was pregnant with my son. But then at the same time, I was like, then I thought, how am I going to finish school? Like, there's no way I can't do anything, and kind of like, thinking like this is going to be really hard. And it definitely was challenging, but at the same time, like having my son definitely pushed me probably to be a better student and to be better with my time and time management. And it definitely didn't hinder any of my success. It's just I really had to buckle down, and because I had him, I had that motivation to do really well. And I got probably more, fellowships and scholarships because of him, like pushing me to work really hard, because I wasn't just doing it for myself anymore. I was doing it because I had a child to provide for as a single mom. And so that really pushed me. But I honestly don't think that probably wasn't the hardest thing for me. In the music department at UNR, I faced I felt not really welcome there. My last 2 years there, I really, because there's hardly any students, of color in that department. And it's sometimes that was a struggle. And especially in some of the classes, like where, you're in these classes with students who come from performing arts schools, or they're coming from years of training with, vocal studios, and have had the money to like do all these like private things, where I was just coming in and I loved to sing and I wanted to learn more about music. And so there were times that I definitely felt like I didn't belong there because nobody looked like me there. Then I almost like quit because I was getting unfortunately some professors there, weren't very supportive, especially when they found out that I had a child. I had several professors tell me that why are you continuing this degree? Like, you're never going to do anything. You have a kid. You can't perform if you have a kid. Like, you should just continue your biology, what you're wanting to do with music and why you're studying it. Like, that Native American music isn't that. And so I really, the last 2 years, I felt like, why am I even doing this? Like, they don't want me here. Like, they're looking for anything to tear me apart. They're saying, like, what I want to do isn't music, isn't music. And it is. Native American music is. It belongs there. They just don't teach about it. And so having those things, like having to deal with that was a lot. And like having, a professor, I was going in to get extra help because I was not the best at sight reading, and then to have this person tell me that I was getting passed because people felt sorry for me, that I got music scholarships, not because of my grades or my ethic, but because I was a mom, like, really, really awful things where I eventually had to go speak to our dean of the department about some of the things that was said. So that, for me, was the hardest part because I was so close to being done, and I just felt like, well, why am I going to do this? But I'm glad that I didn't. And it was just that more rewarding when I walked the stage and I came back and the faculty were there, and I seen some of those professors who said those things to me, and it was kind of just like, oh, like I did it despite what you said. And then, this year receiving a forward and being listed as, because we had to choose a field and having it say musicology. So it's like, you know what, like there are people who think the work that I'm doing is important, and yes, it is music. So that for me was the not having a child, like that's a struggle. It was. I don't recommend doing that, but it could be done. But the other stuff, when you have professors who are supposed to be supportive, saying those things to you, especially coming from like an underrepresented background, and being like the only Native in the whole department, sometimes just felt like isolating. But there were a few professors there that really encouraged me to keep going and that I could do it. And so I'm really glad that I stuck it out. So that was probably the most challenging.
Yeah, I'm really proud of you too, because that is super challenging to always have somebody say that you can't do this or you can't do that, and especially being a mother at the same time, like you said, that's just another thing added on top of that. And I just wanted to ask real quick, what message do you have for other parents or single parents who are going to college, or a piece of advice for them?
Yeah, well, I think for me, like one of the things, like when I found out, that I was gonna have a kid, I thought like I couldn't go to school, right, and I couldn't do all these things, and I was so wrong. Like looking back now, because it's been really great to hear, to have younger people, message me and say that they look up to me for various reasons, or other parents who are like, I've been watching you kind of like on your journey and seeing like how hard you work, and you're inspiring me to go back to school. Like that really means a lot to me, because I always wanted to like be somebody that, our youth could look up to. And I thought like, oh, well, what if I have a kid and I'm a single mom, like what is that saying to them, but I really would just encourage, like, if you're thinking about going to school, like don't think about it, like just do it. It's going to be really, really hard, but if you have family or friends that are there to support you and you work really hard, like it can be done. You just have to be really great with your time and apply to scholarships and everything that you can. There's a tons of resources out there for parents and single mothers. So like if I can do it, working 3 jobs and going to school and having, being a single mom, like anybody can do it. It's not the easiest, but you can definitely do it. So if you're thinking about it, like you can message me or get my information, because I've been kind of not really mentoring, but just talking with some people who are my friends on social media and stuff, and encouraging them, or they're asking for support or scholarships or that sort of thing. So I'm always available if anybody has any questions or just any tips to how to survive, because sometimes a lot of people are always like, how do you do like everything you do? And I'm like, I have no idea. Like sometimes when I think about it, I get overwhelmed with how much I have to do, but I really just take it day by day. And it can be done, but it's hard. It's definitely hard work, but it makes it that much more rewarding in the end.
Yeah, definitely. And definitely it's like, because my sister's a single parent too, and she's going to school too, and like just the things that moms have to go through, like they have to think about so many other things, and it's just like, it's kudos to you, keep doing it. And yeah, I'll definitely have to connect you with my sister.
That's awesome. Congrats to her.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll definitely tell her. So this goes to our next question. and you kind of talked about it when you were talking about your experience, about how important it is for people from underrepresented communities to push forward and really say how important their culture is, and how important, like, we do belong in these spaces. So for you, how does studying your culture help you to stay grounded? And like you said, it made you determined to obtain your degree and to continue going on and showing how important it is for Native representation to be in these spaces.
Yeah, I think for me, like that was ultimately the reason why I chose to do, a PhD versus dentistry. But I think this past year, I mean, because it had so many different challenges, and I really felt isolated because I couldn't go home for a while because I was here, quarantined with just myself and my son. And it was really hard. I mean, grad school's no joke. It's like, undergrad, but like times 2 or 3. And so it was really hard, to keep motivated sometimes just because everything was so crazy. But it was a good reminder, and, having phone calls and conversations with people, our young ones, and then like our elders back home that I would call, just like reminded me of like why I'm doing what I'm doing. Because sometimes in grad school, like, you're so busy with work and literally just reading, that sometimes you kind of get lost in just like trying to get everything done, and like your assignments and fellowships and everything else that you have to do, grading. But just that like a reminder of like why you're doing what you're doing is, and why it's important. And for me, that's easy because I was a teacher, and I'm trying to do work to revitalize and regenerate new speakers, and to sing our songs, and to do all these things with the young ones and our elders. And so I'm really fortunate that I have great relationships with our community, and that I'm still maintaining those. And so it's a good reminder, like when I call, and to hear words of encouragement to keep going, because sometimes, I never don't feel like I can't do it. It just gets really stressful, and sometimes you want to go home, and be around family. And so I'm really thankful that, UC Davis is not that far, so I can drive home and visit my family when I'm feeling like that, or just really, really stressed and I need some extra time to get some stuff done. My family's there to help me. So, but yeah, my culture, obviously, just hearing about my research, but for those who like are not, maybe you're going to schools, in a totally different field that's not related to NAS. I think just our connection with family, it's always prevalent in like Native families and cultures, right? Like your family is always there as your backbone. But for me, I think definitely just having that our culture and our ways of being and knowing with me, I think helps me as a student to get through the Western world of academia. It's very tough, especially like rejections with conferences and fellowships and things like that. It gets very draining on you. I think that's a side of it that you don't really hear a lot about, especially because a lot of us are the first, in our family to go to attain our master's or higher. And so they don't really understand what it is that we actually do, and like how taxing it is on us, and how hard it is at times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think you said it well, that our family and just like having our culture and even studying the culture is one of our greatest resources that we don't really think of much, and it can be a really healing to stay in touch with your family and also find these resources that help you. And while we're talking about resources, I just want to know, what were some good resources that helped you out while you were during your undergrad or even as a youth? And what were some resources that you just know of now that could possibly help out Indigenous students?
Yeah, well, I definitely think, go through your tribe at first for higher education stuff. And although like I was very thankful for my tribe, didn't pay for everything, especially because with my undergrad, our voice studios, were $550 per, on top of the tuition, like for credit. So like for voice studio lesson, piano studio lesson, like my money went real quick. So I would often spend, my breaks in the library doing applications, and it sucked. But I was fortunate enough to leave my undergrad with no debt. And so the same thing here. I've been really working really hard, which was why I was able to secure so much funding, because your tribes only pay for so much, and out-of-state tuition and grad school is twice as much as undergrad. So it was really important for me to try to not, when I get done, I didn't want to have a ton of debt from student loans. And so I really applied to a lot of scholarships, to fellowships. I've been really successful, but I've also gotten a ton of rejection. So I just got one the other day, a rejection. So you just kind of get used to it. But I definitely would suggest, going to your institution's financial aid also. And then just getting on the internet and looking up. There are so many, so many scholarships for Native students. Just going on search engines or just signing up. There's a lot of great American Indian College Fund. There's tons of organizations, and just getting on there and Googling, and even just even going beyond that and looking like in your field, there's tons of scholarships out there. You just really have to apply. That would be my suggestion. That's what I did in my undergrad. If you're into health professions, definitely apply to IHS. I wish I would have did that earlier, because I could have got my school, before that, my other years paid for. They also give you a stipend, which is amazing. And if you get an IHS scholarship as an undergraduate, you're pretty much, you kind of have your foot in the door to get, to go to med school, vet school, dental school, paid for. So that's a really great resource if you're interested in like the health professions. But yeah, just getting on Google for sure, and just looking up stuff. Some resources here that I've been applying to at UC Davis are internal ones. Ford, American Indian Graduate Center, COBAL. I've applied to all of those, and luckily enough, I have received all of them. So it sucks. Applications, working on them really does suck while you're like simultaneously like grading and studying, and then you're like, oh, and then in my free time, I have to do fellowship. Super fun, but it in the end, it's worth it because you don't have to worry about that, or you don't have to take as much out for loans. Or you have some money that you're not stressing about getting, finding more work too. So yeah, definitely just applying to everything for sure.
It's definitely a hustle, but it pays off. It pays off in the end, definitely. Mm-hmm. So you've been giving a ton of great advice throughout this whole talk, and you've given me some good advice too. So what would be your best piece of advice that either someone has told you, or what you've gathered from your years of going to school and pursuing a higher education for our Native youth? Like, what would you tell them to do, either going for education or going for whatever they wish to pursue?
Yeah, I think for me, like the best advice, that is something that my dad taught me, like really when I was like in high school, like he told me, like, no matter what you want to do in your life, like no one's going to do it for you, whether that's, going to school or even, applying for scholarships, but really just like anything that you want to do, like you can't just like sit around and wait for opportunities to come to you. You have to take the time and the initiative to do it. And I've been really fortunate enough with a lot of the opportunities that I've had in my life through different ambassador programs, or traveling internationally, representing our country on a pageant, like just a lot of different things that I've been very fortunate enough to do. I wouldn't have done if I didn't take the time to apply. So I would just definitely say, like, whatever you think you want to do, and you don't have to go to college necessarily to become, a doctor or a lawyer or a dentist or whatever. Like, if you're really into pursuing like acting, or, being an auto mechanic, like things like that, or trades, like, I just really encourage people to do what they want to and follow your heart. Like I said, I didn't think that I was going to be here doing a PhD, but I'm really grateful that I'm able to do something that doesn't feel like, this summer I'm doing like research, but it's not. I've just been calling and speaking with elders, and going to be filming some dances and singing. And so, like, you really can do anything that you want to do. And we live in an age where you guys have so many different resources, like getting on Google, on social media. You guys have awesome, like, there's a lot of Native and Indigenous people doing really cool things that when I, was growing up, like, we didn't have a lot of the stuff we have now to get on and to follow, like a Native actress or a Native model, or like a Native fashion designer, a Native filmmaker. Like, we didn't, like, I didn't know anybody. Like, I couldn't name anybody that went to even college, when I was little. So, like, you have all these opportunities and access to people, just reach out and ask, for tips on like what they did to get there. I often find that Native people who are successful, want you to be successful as well. So just like not being afraid to put yourself out there too. So just anything that you want is totally out there. It sounds very cliche, but like anything that you think you want to do, like you can do it. You just have to keep following through, and there's going to be a bumpy, bumps in the road, but like if you want it bad enough, like you can do it.
And I know you mentioned too about going straight into your PhD. And so what would you say to a native student, especially even like me and Jared, or any native youth? Honestly, I don't think many of us grow up and are like, oh, I'm going to get my PhD one day. And so what would you say to a native student who doesn't even think it's possible for them to get their PhD?
That if I can do it, coming from Wads, I grew up there. I definitely didn't think that I would ever, I didn't really think beyond, when you're that age, you don't really think more than just like, oh, I want to get out of here, right? Because most kids, like I thought that at one time, like, God, I never want to live on the res. And like, it's so crazy now because it's just like, it's home. And for me to think that, was so naive to be able to be fortunate to live, on the lands that our ancestors have always occupied, and just that sense of being and belonging, like, and I miss it. I miss, the res, and as much as I'd always be like, oh, I want to go live in the city and stuff. And it's like, but then now, as an adult, I'm like, man, I miss it, and I miss having access, to just go visit elders and things like that. But I think for those of you who are like, I can't do it, like I said, I'm proof that you can do it. And there's so many, like, especially within like NAS, the field of Native Studies and Indigenous Studies, like there's just like a new wave of young scholars that are coming in and kind of changing the way academia sees Indigenous ways of knowledge. Like there's so many of us in different fields, not just in NAS, but like different fields, whether that's like science or ecology or just like mathematics. Like there's just different Native people were all those things before colonizers came here, right? Like we were botanists, we had our own ways to navigate, so we were all these things. And so to see yourself, to think that like, no, I couldn't do that, like you can. And I guess for those going into grad school, like I would just say, like, enjoy your summer, because I was just like super excited, like, oh yes, like I'm going, it's gonna be exciting, I'm moving. But then it's like as soon as it comes, you're just like so busy, and it's very taxing. But I'm sure Avery, you're gonna love your department that you're in as well. So definitely just picking something that you love doing, so it doesn't seem like work or that you're like you hate being in. Like I meet so many students as a TA who are like in a program that they don't want to be in. They're doing it because their parents want them to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, and that's not their passion. So definitely picking something that you're excited about, because then when you're studying and stuff, it's not like you're not hating it. But yeah, if you can think about what you want to do, and you don't necessarily either, like I'm not even entirely sure. A lot of people are like, oh, so you're like gonna go be like a professor? Like right now I'm unsure. Like with the PhD, you can do several things. You don't have to just go into academia and be a professor. You can write books, you can do more research, like you can start a nonprofit. Like just having that unfortunately, like having those acronyms behind your name are able, you're able to do a lot more with that than just not saying that traditional ways of being and knowing are important as well, and just as valuable, but sometimes having that education, more doors open for you, and you can really do anything you want with that. So don't think that you just have, I don't want to be a professor. Like you don't have to, because I don't even know if I want to go into that yet. But yeah, if I can do it, and you guys can do it too, because I just a little res girl from Wads. So if I can do it, you guys can do it too.
All right, now I'm inspired. Okay. I just want to first off just thank you for participating in this discussion. I think it was really like a short and sweet discussion compared to the other ones we've had. I feel like everything we talked about was really important. Every single question you had, and amazing answers. So I just want to thank you first off for that. And Jared, did you have any last words?
No, yeah, I just wanted to thank you too. And yeah, I've learned a lot. From this conversation, and just from following your journey. It's really inspiring seeing all of the great, like all of your hard work pay off. And I always love seeing you post things about your kids and stuff. I'm like, dang, Native excellence, Indigenous excellence, we love to see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. And I think, yeah, it's important. I think it's good to see other people, succeeding, and even to hear about their failures. Like a lot of people think that I tend to try to stay more positive, on my social medias. But like, I mean, I got rejected so many times and I failed and, even had to repeat classes in my undergrad because I didn't do so great, or, because at that time I was going to dental school. So I had to have like all A's. So like, it's okay to take a break. It's okay to like go back. It's okay to switch. Like I switched my major, like, I think like 3 times, 4 times maybe. And it's okay to go at your own pace. Like I feel like so often, like, we just think you have to, go to high school, then go straight there and then start your career. And like, you can decide to go back at any time. And like I said, I've had people like, who are even older than me are like, you're inspiring me to go back to school. Like, so I feel like if somebody can take something from my journey and like use it for theirs, and then hopefully they'll inspire somebody, like, I think we need to see more Native people, doing that, whether it's in, getting a different job or going back to school or pursuing, like, they want to be a model or, an actor, like things like that. I just think that it's so great with social media that you have the opportunity to see Native people doing those things, where before we didn't really see it. You couldn't, maybe there was people doing it, but you couldn't really follow them and see it. So I think that's one really cool thing about social media, is that you can kind of see people in whatever it may be in different realms doing amazing things.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to thank you again. And I think me and Jared were probably thinking the same thing. But when you write your first book, we'll buy it and we'll share it. And we're excited to see that.
Yeah, I hope so. So yeah, the project that I'm working on hopefully will eventually turn into a collection, which is like a song. It'll have the songs that I'm working on, notating the audio to the song, the dances, and then historical information from elders and a video. So that's what I've been working on the last 2 summers. And so hopefully, after I finish my dissertation, hopefully I'll get a postdoc and somebody will feel that it's pertinent information to print. So hopefully we'll see on the horizon.
Yeah, we'll be ready. And thanks, Christina, for coming. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day. I know we've already talked about it. Like, school is super busy once you get out of your undergrad. So I just want to thank you again for taking the time out of your day to share your knowledge with us, and especially with our youth and just other Indigenous students who are going to be watching this. So, and even adults too. Like, there's a lot of older people who go back to school. So I know you're inspiring to all of them. And I just want to thank you again for coming on, and have a good rest of your day.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Hi, Jarrett. I'll see you later. Have a good rest of your evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Amplified Nevada Native Youth. And stay tuned in the next week. We're going to, like I said in the beginning, we're going to have a few other shows left in August. So stay tuned, follow our social media, and have a great weekend, everybody. And Friday before the weekend.